Hello and welcome to coverage. Now, hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Portland. It is round 5. I'm Brian David Marshall, and I am joined by Reed Duke. And we are watching Michael O'Connor there on your left at 4-0 versus JC Tao, your Pro Tour champion this season, and he's playing Abzan Planeswalkers. And Michael O'Connor is playing, he's playing Collected Company, a deck we've seen a lot of here in the feature match area.
Yeah, so JC, of course, one of our world's competitors, member of Team East-West Bowl, and actually just walking around the tables, I think I saw Pascal Maynard playing the same deck as JC. I remember seeing Abzan lands and a collection of pretty cool cards. I was like, wow, what are these guys up to?
Oath of Nissa into a forest for JC, plays a Sylvan Advocate on turn 2. Nothing from Michael O'Connor other than a couple of lands. And so what is JC's deck trying to do here? I see Lilianas, I see Gideons, I see Obnixilis, I see Sorin. So this is a Super Friends style of deck?
Yeah, so this is a control deck. It looks like it has a lot of similarities to the black-white control deck that Lucas Blohan used to win the Pro Tour last weekend, except he has the addition of the green cards for some nice bread-and-butter creatures like Sylvan Advocate and Nissa Vastwood Seer, as well as these Oath of Nissas. So, funny enough, it seems like it's a third color that in a lot of games is going to smooth his mana out, allow him to cast these double cost Planeswalkers more easily with Oath of Nissa.
So Tireless Tracker was the turn 3 play for Michael O'Connor. Hissing Quagmire tapped on turn 3 for JC Tao. And Michael O'Connor passes the turn with 4 mana open. What are we really looking for when we're watching the Bank Company deck? 4 mana untapped is like a big klaxon that starts going off for you, right?
Yeah, one of the major strengths of Bant Company is its ability to operate at instant speed. So when you see 4 mana untapped, it usually doesn't mean that they didn't have anything in their hand. It usually means they have the best card in their deck in their hand.
So, yeah, 6 cards deep. Finds himself a Selfless Spirit and a Nissa. He's going to now search for a forest, put it in his hand. Selfless Spirit has been a huge card to come out of Eldritch Moon for this deck, right?
Yeah, very big, both for protecting the Bant Company deck against damage-based sweepers like Kozilek's Return, also for triggering Archangel Avacyn at the Bant player's convenience. So one subtlety about that turn that was pretty cool is JC fearlessly attacked his Sylvan Advocate into the open mana, and Michael O'Connor just said, okay, no problem. So that tells you perhaps about both players' hands and their expectations of what might be in the other player's hand.
So why wouldn't Michael want to Collected Company and try to beat the Sylvan Advocate? What is he scared of?
Well, he could expect either that JC has an instant speed removal spell, so a double block against the Sylvan Advocate might go poorly if one of the creatures gets grasped or ultimate priced. The other might be that he's afraid of a sorcery speed card like Languish ruining the hard work that his Collected Company put in.
So in comes Tireless Tracker. That card is aptly named. It does a lot of work.
Yep, so JC could have had the option to activate Hissing Quagmire, but I think at this point his mana development is an important aspect of his game plan, and he doesn't want to make that trade.
Yeah. Duskwatch Recruiter comes down for Michael. Passes the turn with 3 mana up. And here's Obnixilis. And immediately it goes down to 2 loyalty.
Yeah, so pretty likely that whatever JC targets is going to result in Selfless Spirit getting sacrificed.
So he targeted the Tireless Tracker, but the Selfless Spirit saved it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And now no attacks, of course, because Michael's blockers are indestructible.
And here comes Dromica's command. There you get a look at Obnixilis Reignited.
Mm-hmm.
-3 to destroy a creature.
Yeah, this is a great spot for Michael O'Connor. A really clean window to kill the Sylvan Advocate before it becomes a 4/5. And in doing so, a really clean window to kill the Obnixilis since JC now has no blockers.
You saw he went to put his creature in the grave, then remembered it was indestructible from the Selfless Spirit. It hit all his creatures.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're looking at a big turn from O'Connor here, being able to both kill the Planeswalker and attack JC's life total for a pretty big chunk of damage.
And now, and this time, he is going to use the Tireless Tracker, I guess, because he's at a better stage of his mana development.
Yeah. Now, one thing Michael should be thinking about is trying to get the Tireless Tracker out of Languished range. JC is definitely on the back foot and is pretty likely going to need a board sweeper to come back, although...
Sorin Grim Nemesis does not sweep the board, but it does some nice work for him
it's the
here.
next best thing, I think. Gain life and kill a creature while adding to the board.
There you get a look at Sorin.
He gets to play that without taking damage, thanks to the Oath of Nissa.
Draft number 32 to the blue gathering point. Draft 32 to blue gathering point.
So JC is pretty likely to minus the Sorin on one of those creatures, but he has to think about how much loyalty to use. Something like Dramoka's Command could throw off his math, and he also might want to just overuse the Sorin in order to protect his own life total a little bit.
He could go up to as much as 13 if he just took it all out.
Right. Usually, unless you're facing a potential lethal attack, it's going to be better to leave the Sorin on some amount of loyalty because that's going to force a creature to attack the Planeswalker and wind up resulting in a higher life total anyway.
So it looks like he said -3. Thought he was targeting... Okay, he was targeting Nissa.
Yeah.
But I guess Michael was looking for Dramoka's Command there.
Yeah, so JC surely thought about Dramoka's Command there and might have decided that his game plan is such that he can't really play around a Dramoka's Command.
Yeah, it didn't matter, though. Lumbering Falls, he still had more than enough attackers. Just fearlessly went in there, and JC Tao is down a game here to Michael O'Connor and his Bant Company. The bad guy of the format.
Yeah. So Bant did what it's meant to do there in terms of just getting more creatures on the board faster than the opponent can keep up with. And yeah, Lumbering Falls put the finishing touches on.
So Daniel Ward, it says Fevered Burn there. He is playing a Fevered Visions, and you see him play, but he's really playing like a Fevered Madness deck. His deck is black-red, splashing blue off 10 sources to play Fevered Visions as his only blue card.
Yeah. Yeah, there's actually there's a black card in the graveyard there. Can you make out what that is?
That is Alms of the Vein, Reed. Daniel Ward dug a deep, deep hole to find what he was looking for this tournament. Daniel Ward, of course, on the same team as Pedro Carvalho, the player who put Fevered Visions on the map for everyone this week with his 9-1 record at Pro Tour Eldritch Moon. But Daniel Ward said, Fevered Visions deck is sweet. Let's see if we can take it to another level, and went with this black-red version, playing cards like Collective Brutality, Alms of the Vein, Collective Defiance, obviously a huge card there too.
Boy, any price for a Lava Spike, huh?
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love a Lava Spike?
Yeah.
So meanwhile, let's take a look at what these guys here are thinking about in sideboarding. Like I would imagine that the Bant Company deck has some pretty clear sideboarding decisions at this point.
Yeah, so the Bant Company deck probably has a fairly scripted approach to these slower Planeswalker type of matchups. The thing is, JC's deck is somewhat original, or not necessarily what Michael O'Connor was expecting to face, so he might not know exactly what JC's up to. I mean, he saw Ob Nixilis and Sorin and some green creatures, might not know how many languishes, might not know what the instant speed removal suite, might not know if JC is stretching all the way up to Emrakul.
You don't have a weird deck package that you bring in with the Bant deck. You're like, I don't know what this deck's doing. Let me bring this in.
Some all-purpose counterspells are good against unpredictable opponents. Clash of Wills and Negate, I think, are cards that Michael is going to be at least strongly considering here.
Certainly when you see the Planeswalkers, Negate seems great. And you're always tapping out for your Planeswalkers on curve if you're a Planeswalker deck, so Clash of Wills. That was a deck Luis was saying that he felt, he would have liked to have gotten into his main deck in hindsight at the Pro Tour.
Yeah, Clash of Wills, especially as the format moved in a direction more towards bigger mana decks, slower decks. A card like Clash of Wills is going to go up in value, and generally the Bant deck, especially after sideboarding, wants to operate as much as possible at instant speed to protect itself from powerful cards like Emrakul, like Languish, like Sorin.
So what is the top end here for JC Tao's deck? We didn't see a ton of it, but we saw the Planeswalkers, we saw some of the creatures. He did not go the Emrakul route with this deck, right?
No, this is, I think, very comparable to Black-White Control in terms of topping out at Obnixilis and Sorin. JC has the extra power in a couple copies of Den Protector for late-game versatility. And although I'm not very familiar with JC's deck, the one thing that I can for sure tell you about this matchup is that they have played a lot against Bant Company, and they have a really good sideboard plan. They probably would not have shown up to the tournament with this deck if they didn't feel confident in the matchup.
So Evolving Wilds cracked for Michael O'Connor at the end of JC's turn 2. Goes Hissing Quagmire, Llanowar Wastes. His first 2 turns. Michael O'Connor finds himself a forest.
So I like this turn 2 Llanowar Wastes play by JC, both forcing Michael O'Connor to think about Grasp of Darkness, but also protecting himself against a possible Thalia, saving basic lands to come into play untapped later.
Yeah, that's a card we've seen migrating its way into the Bant lists here, right?
Yeah. And it's a punishing card if you are not used to playing against it or don't sequence your lands and spells properly.
And there you see exactly what you were saying. The Grasp of Darkness takes out a Duskwatch Recruiter on turn 2 from Michael O'Connor. Let's see, so we're going to see another Llanowar Waste. This goes and fetches the basic land.
Yeah, so this is just what the Abzan deck wants to be doing. He kills the first creature, buying himself a nice window to play a card like Nissa that doesn't impact the board quite as much, but develops his plan in a different way.
There, so he gets a forest. No white in sight here for JC Tao, but I haven't seen his hand. So he may have that. Hasn't needed it yet necessarily.
And
You
no
get a look
blue
at
in sight for Michael O'Connor.
Yeah, Nissa Vest would see. You get a look at the legendary creature. Card that's just gone up in value for. Oh, and there's your Thalia, Heretic Cathar.
Yeah, it looked like there was a moment of confusion there where JC maybe thought that Michael had passed the turn, but really he wanted to play the Thalia.
And there is Liliana, the all-star from Pro Tour Eldritch Moon. Goes up to 4. There's a white source. It's a shambling vent for JC Tao, and he just passes the turn.
So shrinking Thalia small enough that even with first strike, she can't get through Nissa or can't really deal much damage to either Liliana or JC.
JC's like, my lands come into play tapped anyway. There's a Sylvan Advocate now for Michael O'Connor as we start to creep towards a more familiar Bant Company board state. So 3 Languishes in JC's deck. So he does have the board sweepers. Continues to tick Liliana up.
Yeah, Languish is a very interesting card against Bant Company, particularly after sideboard, because they do have a lot of ways to beat it, between Spell Queller, instant speed threats, other counter spells like Negate off the sideboard. So I think it would be a mistake to lean too heavily on Languish. However, having it as one more tool that the Bant player is going to have to think about is very valuable.
Do you think there's any chance that JC would have taken them out?
It's within the realm of possibility. I think the threat of Languish is sometimes just as important as actually having the card. My best guess would be that JC left some number in his deck, though.
Okay, another Grasp of Darkness. This one's aimed at the Taralos tracker. Only 1 clue, so he couldn't get out of range.
Yep. And you see Michael representing possible counter magic like a Negate or Clash of Wills, but not using it on Grasp of Darkness. He definitely wants to have that mana open on JC's turn in case he wants to go for a big spell like Sorin.
Getting close to transforming that Nissa into yet another Planeswalker. And here's Gideon. So we're a turn away from 3 Planeswalkers on the board. I have to imagine, even for Bant Company, that's bad news.
Yeah, absolutely. The first time that your opponent has a Planeswalker and you have to say go without attacking is a really bad signal. It's sort of like things are only going to get worse from here.
So you see a tapped Knight ally enter the battlefield. Thalia still doing work here.
This game is going exactly as JC wants it to go. He protected his life total, neutralized a few early threats, and now is gaining card advantage off of his Planeswalkers and his 2-for-1 cards like Nissa. That said, I wouldn't count the Bant Company deck out because the actual card Collected Company, as well as other stuff like Archangel Avacyn, gives the Bant deck a lot of ways to claw back from behind.
Yeah. Sylvan Advocate is turned on, as we say. Got 6 lands in play, and it goes...
Yeah, wow, and that was a huge turn. The combination of Thalia and Reflector Mage making it really hard for JC to protect his Planeswalkers, and yeah, the 6th land for Advocate, just letting him crash in and kill Gideon at almost no cost.
Yeah, Reflector Mage bouncing, a fairly dangerous card in Nissa, but, you do what you have to do, and you have a whole turn to figure out a way to deal with it.
Yeah, so where a moment ago I was praising JC's board position, now things have turned to be more even, if not in Michael O'Connor's favor.
Okay, here we go. So here's a Languish. Taps 4 mana for it.
If this resolves, Liliana will be able to finish off the 4/5 Sylvan Advocate. That's a really important combination for these black decks.
There you see Languish. So on the stack right now, it has not resolved. If it does, all creatures will get -4, -4.
You also see very conveniently 2 mana available for JC, 3 available for Michael O'Connor, so Clash of Wills cannot counter this Languish.
But a Negate would
Negate could.
do a fine bit of work here.
Yep, and Spell Queller would also stop the Languish at least temporarily.
JC reminds, he's like, no, it's not dead yet. Now it's dead. Get it out of here. As he uses the ability from Liliana, the Last Hope, to give it an additional -1 and finish it off. So here is Nissa Vastwood Seer from Michael O'Connor.
Yeah.
He's going to transform his Nissa this turn.
Now he'll have a Planeswalker of his own.
Yeah.
Which brings up another really important strength of this Abzan Planeswalker deck, which is the fact that it gets to play the full 8 creature lands.
Wow.
Yeah, 4 Hissing Quagmire, 4 Shambling Vent, alongside Sylvan Advocate, making it probably the best creature land deck in the format.
So Nissa's Sage Animist comes down, quickly makes a legendary 4/4 green elemental creature token named Ashaya. It's a lot of words there.
Yeah.
But it means you can't. What's interesting about it is it's one of the few token generators that makes a legendary token, so you can't really get, build up a situation where you get multiple of them in play.
Yeah, and that comes up more often than you might think, both if you can get your Nissa up to 4 counters and minus twice in a row, you can't have 2 tokens in play. Also, if you play a redundant copy of Nissa, you still can't have 2 Shayas. However, there can be 1 on each side of the table.
And we may see that very soon. Here comes another Nissa Vastwood Seer that is going to immediately turn over into the Sage Animist.
I find this to be a cool turn because if JC had a removal spell or just an 8th land to activate 2 creature lands, he has the ability to try and kill Michael's Nissa. However, the 4 open mana for the Bant Company deck can mean any number of things, and it would be a very tough choice for JC whether he wants to go for that and possibly walk into a Collected Company or another flash creature.
Well, no Collected Company for Michael O'Connor. Liliana, by the way, on the critical 7 loyalty here. And can Michael O'Connor punish that? Can he stem the tide here? Or are we going to just start seeing the ever increasing march of zombies?
It's a good question. We just might. Where a moment ago this game was about creatures and about Languish killing those creatures, now it's all about the Planeswalkers. Michael gets to untap with Nissa first, which is an advantage, but he is facing down that Liliana threatening to ultimate.
So Duskwatch Recruiter comes down, finds another checklist card.
Which seems likely to be a Jace, unless he's using some real copies of Duskwatch Recruiter and some checklist cards.
All right. So now, is there any temptation to wait a turn on Liliana, or is that just crazy talk?
I would not be tempted. I would probably as soon as I untap, I wouldn't be able to remove those dice fast enough to get the Liliana ultimate.
So what Reed said is BDM. That's just crazy talk. There you're going to look at the Pro Tour champion as he considers whether or not he's into the crazy talk, or just the cold hard logic of an unending stream of zombies.
I'll say this, with some of Liliana's other variants, like the modern playable version, I often do tick it up one past ultimate in order to have it stick around. But I think on an even board state, you're likely enough to win with the ultimate that you don't have to get greedy.
You see JC lining up his creature lands, puts a Shambling Vet and a Hissing Quagmire ahead of his other lands, seeing what his options are here.
Yeah, so he's thinking about whether he can easily kill Michael O'Connor's Nissa Sage Animist. He's also perhaps thinking about his blocks if Michael tries to attack his Planeswalkers next turn.
So he sends in his token, sends it at the Sage Animist. Duskwatch Recruiter steps in the way and makes a lovely parting gift.
Okay, so that's a chump block, interestingly enough.
And that looked like an Eldritch Moon checklist card there. Okay. But I'm not certain. And yeah, there we go. Cash in Liliana, the last hope. And now he gets an emblem, and so every turn he's going to put X zombies into play, where X is 2 plus the number of zombies you control. That gets out of hand very, very quickly. He also plays a face-down creature, which we believe is a Den Protector. There you see the Liliana emblem in play.
Oh, and just to consider one more possibility, O'Connor does have Archangel Avacyn, so any of those checklist cards we saw could be Archangel Avacyn.
Okay. So here's Tireless Tracker. Ticks up the Nissa Sage Animist to 3. Gets an Evolving Wilds. He's going to sack it immediately. Gets 2 clues for that. Evolving Wilds has never looked as good as it has in a format with Tireless Tracker.
Yeah, very strong card. So, yeah, O'Connor's going to fight the good fight here and just try to fend off Liliana's swarms of zombies.
Now, what is Michael O'Connor's answer here? Like, how can he get past this ever-growing swarm of zombies?
Well, his way to beat the swarm of zombies is to kill JC. Just to deal 17 damage to JC Tau. That's going to be tough in the face of blockers, but he can use flying creatures. He can use some temporary measures like transforming Archangel Avacyn to wipe up the zombies or reset the zombies.
JC's gone into overdrive here. He turned up a Den Protector. I believe he got back maybe a Sylvan Advocate. I'm not sure. It was the first green card in his graveyard. Could have also been a Nissa. Also got hit a land off of his Nissa Sage Animist, and then also played a second Oath of Nissa. And looks like he has Ob Nixilis in hand here. So just, you could tell he feels like he has taken the upper hand in this game, and well, he has.
Yeah. What's better than playing more Planeswalkers when you have an unlimited stream of blockers?
So Ob Nixilis gets Clash of Willed.
Okay.
Only 3 mana left for JC.
I wonder if Michael had been holding that Clash of Wills for a long time. He passed with small amounts of mana open a lot. That made me think of a counterspell, but can't say for sure. There's one last Hail Mary way that Michael O'Connor might be able to overcome these zombies, and that's one of Subjugator Angel in his sideboard.
Oh, wow. That was a card Luis Scott Vargas loved in his band company last weekend at the Pro Tour.
So I'm not sure how likely he would have been to foresee this series of events and sideboard in that Subjugator Angel, but if it is in his deck, that's something to play towards.
All right, so Gnarlwood Dryad comes down. Nissa Sage Animus dies to the attack. One of the zombies get eaten, but 3 more rise up in its place. All right, another clue for Michael O'Connor. Plays his land. Hiding behind a Tireless Tracker and a 4/4 Elemental token.
Yeah, so what Michael wants to do for this next turn or two is just put as many high toughness blockers into play as possible. Then once the board gets a little bit more gummed up, more possible routes to victory open up to him, like the Archangel Avacyn, like the Subjugator Angel.
Right. Declaration in Stone, if he brought that in, could also be a card for him here, right?
Great point. 2 Declarations in Stone on the sideboard. That can reset the zombies to 0. Killing tokens doesn't give JC clues, so he doesn't have to worry about that. So on the other side of the coin, JC should be focusing on simplifying the board as much as possible. He's ahead by a lot in this game, so the cleaner things look, the less possibilities there are for things to go wrong.
So
he wants to attack and make Michael trade as often as possible.
So he sends in his legendary token. They trade. JC passes, and here you see, wow, look at this. Oh.
34, please meet at the
That must be the Avacyn.
That is an Avacyn.
Which we believe was revealed at Duskwatch Recruiter, so
Yes,
shouldn't
yeah.
be a surprise to JC. And looks like he is prepared with some kind of removal spell.
You get a look at Archangel Avacyn. Does not want that to transform. And takes it out with a Grasp of Darkness. Probably one of the few things in the format that Archangel is really matches up badly against.
Mm-hmm.
Grasp, Ultimate Price are the natural predators for that card.
Yep. Archangel Avacyn, I think her stock has gone up with the printing of Selfless Spirit. It's just a really great pairing, allowing you both to transform the Avacyn at your convenience and also protect your creatures from dying when she does transform. The only catch is Selfless Spirit is pretty bad against Liliana, so Michael O'Connor may have sideboarded it out in this matchup.
Yeah. Has 4 in his main deck.
Okay. I like that a lot. I like that decision.
And look at this zombie horde for JC Tao. Starts lining up his lands now. He is ready to start rumbling here.
Maybe not, though. Maybe he wants to put the pressure on our judges' staff to provide him with enough tokens to keep playing this game.
You know, what you really want to do is you want to ask your opponent to agree to give you a penny for every zombie token you make, and then eventually you can retire to the Cayman Islands,
Yeah.
because that gets out of hand pretty quick. Frank Carson did an excellent article where he talked about, how much life you want to name. If you had an infinite loop and you could just name a number of how much life you're at, what number would you need to name to not lose to Liliana's ultimate?
Wow.
And that number was far greater than 20. He said, I think it was 1 billion life would not be enough. You could actually make enough zombies that you would eventually outstrip that. He recommended some sort of Googleplex number to be safe. So everybody gets in. And he's like, I have these 10 zombies over here still.
Well, we can't count that high, but that's probably lethal.
And so JC Tao forces game 3 here with his Abzan Planeswalkers deck against Bant Company of Michael O'Connor. And both players now will say, okay, now I have a better sense of this matchup. You're going to go back and maybe think about sideboarding again. Does Bant Company sideboard play draw differently?
Well, that's probably different from player to player. The thing about Bant Company is, well, with all collected company decks, you have to be very careful in sideboarding not to lower your creature count too much. So
Right.
you don't have quite as much flexibility as certain other decks in the format to change things. And given that Michael, it seemed, brought in his counterspells even on the draw, I expect he'll have those cards on the play as
Okay.
well. Something like Dromoka's Command might change in value a little bit. Being able to win a Sylvan Advocate battle when you're on the play with Dromoka's Command makes it a bit better.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's a card that's going to be particularly exciting in this matchup.
Okay, so there you so the other match we've been looking in on is Daniel Ward versus Richard Lee. They are also in the middle of in between games 2 and 3 here.
Okay.
So no other Magic for us to go to at the moment. You did also see another round of action, but that with Braun-Duin, but we're going to be able to bring that to you after the conclusion of these two matches in the middle table. So we'll get Marshall and Jacob in here, and they will time warp that match for you.
Mm-hmm. So we saw JC's deck work, I think, exactly how he wanted it to work in that second game. He got some breathing room in the early turns. He got Planeswalkers that he was able to untap with. He even landed a great Languish. So really every tool working exactly how he needed to.
That deck looked really sweet that round. I mean, and very, very powerful. I liked your observation that it reminded you of Lucas's deck, but kind of like adjusted to compete with the other decks that we saw that came out of the Pro Tour.
Yeah, and the raw power of some of these green cards is too much for a lot of people to resist. I have not been able to resist the power of these green cards in any standard tournament I've played over the past year. Yeah, and just, Sylvan Advocate with the 8 creature lands is great. Nissa Vastwood Seer, arguably, one of the best Planeswalkers in the format, and just a great value card to help you smooth your draws. Yeah, I think the addition of the third color comes at a cost, but it could be well worth it.
Yeah, here we see Daniel Ward. This is turn 3. Oh, no Fevered Visions for him on turn 3.
And we see on Richard Lee's side a pretty interesting countermeasure to Fevered Vision's Noose Constrictor.
Yeah, I mean, there are, I saw a couple decks where they were like, I kind of maybe wanted to get the Noose Constrictor out, but I left one in so I could tutor for it and be able to play it against the Fevered Vision decks and dump my hand. No need to tutor here for Richard. He just drew it on turn 2, but it is going to die to maybe going to die to a Lightning Axe. Discarding Incendiary Flow. No madness for Daniel.
Yeah, so nice to overkill the Noose Constrictor. It's not a creature you want to really be dealing 2 or 3 damage to, because that's not going to get the job done sometimes, but 5 damage, usually going to be enough.
Yeah, and if your opponent saves it there, you're like, yes.
Yeah. Unless you have Fevered Visions.
That's true. All right, there you see. Wow, look at this. A face-up Den Protector and an Evolving Wilds from Richard Lee.
Oh, and there's the Fevered Visions. So maybe Lee should have discarded some cards to that Noose Constrictor. Boy, what a funny interaction.
Fevered Visions is such a tough card because you're like, oh yeah, my opponent played Fevered Visions. I'm going to draw some cards. This is going to be awesome. Mm-hmm. And then they play a series of the worst cards you've ever seen in a game of Standard that will just stymie you and frustrate you and keep your hand full and your board kind of not fully developed, and you just find that you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
You keep looking for all the burn spells in these Fevered Vision decks, and there's not a ton of them, but there's so many tempo cards that really put you on your back foot.
Yeah. There's just enough burn to make Fevered Visions very, very dangerous.
So in comes Den Protector. 4 lands here for Richard, and he plays a Thought-Knot Seer. Looks at a hand of Bedlam Reveler, Mountain, and Collected Defiance.
Collective Defiance, we talked about earlier, an awesome card, and just really hits a sweet spot in the format, being able to kill, Thought-Knot Seer, Kalidas, lots of other 4 toughness creatures that might otherwise be really problematic for a red deck.
So exiles the Collective Defiance, lets Daniel keep Mountain and Bedlam Reveler. Bedlam Reveler not quite within range of being played just yet.
No, perhaps next turn, though.
He's a mana off right now. 2 spells in the yard, and only 5 mana in play.
And I think this is the best way to combat Fevered Visions, which is just to put a lot of power into play as quickly as you can and try to kill the Grixis player before, they can burn you out. If you can force them to be spending their burn spells on your creatures, it's a lot better for you.
All right, I don't know about you, but I really want to check in on how Abzan Planeswalker is doing. Let's go back to our main match. We'll let you know what happened here between Daniel Ward and Richard Lee. In the meantime, we are underway, and JC Tao is playing Transgress the Mind here on turn 2 against Michael O'Connor. Sees a hand of Thalia, Selfless Spirit, and
Does that mean there were some mulligans in this game?
It may very well be.
O'Connor's hand was not full enough for turn 2.
And there was, I'm not sure, it looks like he exiled a Tireless Tracker. I believe, I can't see the card. And another Transgress the Mind, this time taking Thalia, Heretic, Cathar. And now it looks like he's going to play a Gnarlward Dryad. So Selfless Spirit versus Gnarlward Dryad is the board. In comes the Selfless Spirit.
Attention, two-headed giant players. Bearings for round 1 are now posted.
Follows up with Duskwatch Recruiter. And that's a card that
can help him come back if he has enough time.
Replenish his hand. And JC doesn't have anything going on. He's going to let Pat says go, meaning that the Duskwatch Recruiter is going to transform. Michael has an opportunity to respond by activating it, but chooses not to. Gets in with the flyer. Doesn't want to run his Krowlin Horde Howler into the Death Toucher. And Michael takes advantage of the discount to play a 1-mana Selfless Spirit.
So after some mulligans and 2 1-for-1 trades with Transgress the Minds, Michael was left with very few resources, but JC, it looks like, without the ability to punish that, he has only 1 black mana, only 1 white mana, which means that he couldn't play Liliana or Gideon on schedule. I don't know if he has those in his hand, but...
Wow. Oh, look at this.
Wow.
He traversed the Uvenwalds for the land to play Languish and Spell Queller.
With the discount.
Yeah, for 2 mana, takes out the Languish.
Wow, that was a backbreaking play. Not only was it a surprise because of the discount, Michael didn't even have 3 mana open, but also JC had seen his hand just a few turns prior.
Wow. All right, so Duskwatch Recruiter turns back over, which means now Michael can actually start digging for cards if he doesn't have anything else to do. But in the meantime, he's got a formidable army here. 2 Selfless Spirits, a Duskwatch Recruiter, and a Spell Queller coming over for 8 damage.
Yeah, and perhaps JC was caught off guard by that Spell Queller, and maybe in retrospect would have loved to keep the Gnarlwood Dryad on defense.
So now it's gonna, Krowlin Horde Howler is going to flip over again. Nothing from Michael O'Connor. And JC passes the turn.
So Michael O'Connor has made something of this game, but it's a tenuous position because if Spell Queller dies, as we might see right here, the Languish is going to go off.
And that's Grasp of Darkness, so the Selfless Spirit cannot save it.
Wow.
And so Spell Queller dies, Languish gets played, and Michael O'Connor goes back to 0 cards here in play, other than his lands. So does JC Tao, but he's been, he's sitting there, he's got a Liliana, and he's going to go down to 1 on Liliana and return that Gnarlward Dryad, play the Gnarlward Dryad end. Does he have Delirium? I see land, I see sorcery, I see instant.
There was a creature a second ago. But
there was
now
a
it's
creature,
gone.
yeah. So no Delirium. It's a but we can fix that pretty easily here for JC Tao. So Reflector Mage bounces the Gnarlward Dryad. Here's Obnixilis. It's going to take out Reflector Mage, and Liliana's going to begin her slow climb to 7.
Yeah. So Obnixilis had been frustrated by those Selfless Spirits for a brief snapshot there, but now this is just where JC wants to be. 2 Planeswalkers.
Wow. Draw a card with Obnixilis. Reignited. Lose a life. He's like, okay. Transgress gets eaten by a Spell Queller. And Well, you know, JC's at 7. That's Spell Queller. Okay, but Liliana ticks up.
Funny enough, Spell Queller's ability is not optional, so even if Michael would prefer to let the Transgress resolve, now it's hidden under the Spell Queller for a rainy day if JC ever wants to kill that at instant speed or something like that.
Oh, that would be a very cool instant speed Transgress. So, kill it with the Ob Nixilis, play the Transgress, see a Plains.
So second Ob Nixilis in JC's hand. And we're getting to the stage in the game where Michael's going to need a big draw step very soon, or this is going to slide out of reach.
Liliana ticks up to 4. 2 Gnarlwood Dryads. Planeswalker gives him Delirium he needs. Draws a card with his second Ob Nixilis. 6 points of power on the board, not counting the Hissing Quagmires. And Michael O'Connor thins his deck, gets a land with Evolving Wild. What could he draw here that would pull him out? Does he have anything like a Tragic Arrogance coming out of the sideboard? Maybe a Tameo?
Yeah, I think his best bet is to start with a Collected Company. Hitting 2 creatures can rebuild his board, and then maybe a follow-up good draw can allow him to start attacking the Planeswalkers. But it's going to be a long road back. Despite having gotten JC down to 6, it looks like his life total is not really in jeopardy anymore.
6th land for Michael O'Connor.
Players Mike Boyd, Mike Boyd,
Draws a card,
and
goes down to 5.
Jeremy Hurd, please report to the main stage.
There you get a look at JC Tao as he considers his plethora of options. Yeah, that's very nice. He could -2's the Liliana and gets himself a Sylvan Advocate for his troubles.
So he must be thinking that this game is not going to go long enough for Liliana Ultimate to be relevant. He'd rather just push his advantage now, try to win the game
Plays a
before Michael
land.
can draw out.
Plays a Sylvan Advocate. It's interesting. He may choose not to attack here. Oh, no, he is. Okay. Attacks with both his Gnarlwood Dryads and a Hissing Quagmire. Does Michael O'Connor, did he draw a Collected Company? It's about...
Yeah, maybe the best card here would be Archangel Avacyn. Eat one of the attackers and have an indestructible creature that... Wow,
Okay, yeah.
that's a good start.
But,
but
it
JC
falls,
is not going to fall for it.
yeah, Grasp of Darkness, shoots it out of the sky, and Michael O'Connor suddenly finds himself at 5. And that's the handshake. JC Tao takes the game. Abzan Planeswalkers, very impressive looking deck from the East-West Bowl guys here.
Yeah, that was a great showcase. In both sideboard games, he was able to resolve a Languish and then just take over the game with Planeswalkers exactly as he drew it up.
Resolved one of the Languishes on his opponent's turn,
Yeah.
which was pretty sweet with a Grasp of Darkness on a Spell Queller. Now we're going to go back over to the match between Daniel Ward and Richard Lee. Richard is playing green-black. Looks like a Delirium deck. You see a Matter Reshaper.
Yeah, with a small colorless sub-theme. He searched for a Waste with Evolving Wilds earlier in this game. And both players' life totals have dwindled a bit since we last checked in.
So there we see the Noose Constrictor and the Fevered Visions.
Yeah.
So that the Fevered Visions is not going to really put huge pressure on Richard's life total if that Noose Constrictor lives. And Collective Defiance, wow, look at that. Collective Defiance, and he discards his hand
Yeah.
to keep it alive.
Hey, what's that Noose Constrictor for? Is it enabling madness? Is it blocking flyers? Nope, I just want to discard my hand.
I just want a one with nothing on a stick. Oh, and here is Collective Brutality, discarding Fevered Visions. I don't, looks like,
So he finished off the Noose Constrictor and he cashed in his Fevered Visions for just a life drain for 2.
right, okay. And then draws another card with Fevered Visions at the end of the turn.
All right, so it looks like Dan Ward has taken tenuous control over this game, but if Richard Lee has a good draw step here, he can keep crashing with the Matter Reshaper and maybe put enough pressure on Dan that he can take this game.
Draws his one card
If he,
beginning of his turn.
if he draws nothing, we'll see him attack with the Hissing Quagmire.
All right. Looks like that's what's happened.
Okay.
Oh, another Matter Reshaper.
Solid, and he gets one more draw at the end of the turn. Not in danger of taking damage from Fevered Visions.
Daniel Ward's down to 7. He draws a card with Fevered Visions at the end of the turn. See that he's holding a Fiery Temper. There's one card that flashed by there.
So he'll have to use that if he doesn't want to die to a lethal attack here with the Hissing Quagmire and 2 Matter Reshapers.
All right.
Oh, he's not going for it. He must have drawn something he wants to spend his mana on.
It looks like Traverse the Uvenwald. What is he going to get? He could be anything.
Yeah, looks
Probably-
like a pretty full
probably an
graveyard
Ishkana.
there.
Thought Not Seer.
I would have liked to see Richard make this play
Pre-combat.
pre-combat, just in case the Traverse somehow got countered. He could then spend his mana on the Hissing Quagmire. Oh, wow.
Wow. Dragon Lord Dramoka.
Well, no counter spell stopping that one. And that likely means that Dan is going to have to put together 10 points of burn directly to Richard. He's not going to be able to do anything with attacking. He's not going to really be able to kill all the creatures on the opposing side of the battlefield.
All right. So, Fiery Temper at the end of the turn. Dan's at 1.
I think it's going to
Drops-
have to start with Collective Defiance. Does he have it?
Richard goes to 7.
He does get one more draw step or one more draw at the end of the turn with Feared Visions, but it's going to have to be a very powerful instant to get him out of this. Cryptic Command, not legal in Standard.
Passes. He extends the hand.
Wow.
Richard Lee's green-black Eldrazi deck, green-black colorless, takes the match against Daniel Ward playing the Fevered Madness version of the deck that he and Pedro Carvalho worked on for Pro Tour Eldritch Moon last week. So a sort of new take on the deck that's red-black, splashing blue for just the Fevered Visions. And maybe a couple of other spells out of the sideboard, I don't know. But
So 2 very different takes on Abzan coming out as winners this round.
all right, so that's it for Reed, Duke, and I here in round 5. But don't go anywhere. We got more Magic coming up for you right away after this.